The engineering design process, or EDP. The EDP I use in the STEM classroom came from a combination of 3 different sources, mostly modeling behind the NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration's engineering design process that they put out for schools to use. I've only molded it a little bit to allow for more writing time and individual time in students. So what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is just walk through the EDP, and if I was going to administer it to students, or if the students were going to respond in their journal, what that would look like, and what each step is really good at drawing out in students. The number one goal of the EDP is to have students get their thoughts on paper and then be able to refer back to those thoughts when things didn't work out. All right, the EDP looks like a circle. It goes around in a circle. So step 8 leads back to step 1. So let's start. Step 1 is identify the problem. Step 2 is identify the criteria and constraints. Step 3, brainstorm possible solutions. Step 4, generate ideas. Step 5, explore the possibilities. Step 6, build a model or prototype. Step 7, test. Step 8, refine the design. You may pause the video to write these things down, or you may just listen to it beginning. I'll be referring back to each one to explain about each step. Identify the problem. So when it comes to a problem where we need to design something, we need to create something, we need to answer a problem. The step 1 comes with a question. How can I design a blank that will blank? Okay, students know this question, that the short answer to this is how can I design a blank that will blank? In this scenario, we'll be using a rubber band car, a popular assignment that we do on the first day of school for students in the STEM class. So the answer to this question would be, how can I design a vehicle that is powered by a rubber band? Those are the blanks to be filled in. Each student would write out step by step in their journal or on a sheet of paper as they go down through the steps. Step 2, identify the criteria and constraints. These are 2 big vocabulary words that I was referring to with the EDP that can be used in any classroom. It's great problem solving answers. You need to figure out what you need to accomplish, and you need to figure out what you have to work within, or the constraints. What are you limited by, is what I tell the students. So in the case of our rubber band, we would make a T-chart. One side being criteria, one side be constraints. Now, remember this for later. Your criteria is what you'll be testing for in step 7. So, criteria of our rubber band car is we have to build a vehicle that is powered by a rubber band. So the criteria meaning maybe the vehicle has to move 3 feet across the floor. Maybe it has to move 10 feet. Okay? Constraints are it has to only be done by a rubber band. Otherwise, you would just throw the car, or you would put a motor on it. You can only be powered by a rubber band. You can only have maybe 2 or 3 or 4 wheels. Criteria for a research paper would be that it needs to exceed 2 pages in length. It needs to exceed 5 sources. Constraints are you may only use book sources. You may only use internet sources. You may only use 2 internet sources. These type back and forth T-charts of criteria and constraints helps a student visualize what needs to be done and what limits that he or she has to work within. Step 3, brainstorm the possible solutions. Step 3, 4, and 5 are the visual design stages. Okay, this is where students draw. It's where they write. It's where they're thinking out loud. So step 3, brainstorm possible solutions, is individual. Okay, so each student in the group should sketch his or her own ideas on the piece of paper. They can write it out, they can label it, but it's individual is the big thing for step 3. Everybody draws. Everybody writes. That's the Lemov technique there. Step 4 is generate ideas as a group. So 5, each student draws their own picture. 3, I'm sorry. Step 3, each student draws their own pictures. Step 4, you come together as a group and you share your ideas. You share with each other. You generate. You look at the good and the bad, and then together you generate one design. Okay, so if we're working in pairs of 2, one student says the rubber band car should have 3 wheels because it would be better guided on a straight line that way. Another student says 4 wheels for stability. They would make a compromise and then both draw the same picture or write the same explanation for step 4. Step 5 is explore the possibilities. This is another T-chart. On either side of the T-chart should be pros and cons. I always say that it's great to know the positive things about your design, but it's also great to know the negative things about your design, the things that might possibly go wrong. Strengths and weaknesses. So that's a T-chart of pros and cons, is this short step there. In step 6, build a model or a prototype. Just discussing scale models. What scale is it to? What is your prototype? What is it made out of? A lot of times for step 6, I'll have the students make a materials list. What do they need? They make a checklist to be organized in their thoughts. Step 7, test. Step 7, I have the students write out what the criteria was. So they'll have to know, did you meet your criteria? Sometimes with the test, they'll do 3 tests. Just like in the scientific method, if you have to do 3 tests, you need to list your results for each test. Is it the average that's the best, or is it the best of 3 tests? Before you test, we need to write out what we're testing for. Okay? And 8 is a great step. Actually, the students really like this time. What I have them do is refine the design so we can go back to step 1. But what happens is I have them write what went well, a couple sentences about what went well, a couple sentences about what went wrong. 2, what would they have changed? And then for the third and kind of sometimes third paragraph, sometimes third statement, if you could go back and start over, what approach would you select? So it's another one of those everybody writes. This is an individual writing time. It's their own reflective time on the day, on the 2 days, on the 3 days. Whatever the design stage took, it's their own writing time. They can also draw a picture along with writing, whatever your requirements are for step 8.